let me tell you what, I have seen cases where millions of dollars have gone down the drain and people have lost cases because they didn't want to pay a lawyer $1,000. At the end of the day, you got to get a lawyer and you got to financially plan, because as the wise man Biggie Smalls once said, low money, low problems.
Everybody, welcome back to the Only Lawsuits podcast, where we cover lawsuits going on around the country, along with moments in pop culture. I am Joshua Mobijohn.
Michael Singh.
Farah Nwaz.
Today we're going to get started with something that just happened last night, which is the vice presidential debate. Now, Mike, Farah, did either of you guys watch the debate?
Fuck no.
I'm going to be honest, no.
It was pretty good, surprisingly civil, which was very unexpected for me. You know, I love to watch the debates, and I was actually really looking forward to this one based off of how divisive each of the campaigns have been. But JD Vance and Tim Walz, they had a very, very substantive discussion.
Yeah, I watch some of the sometimes with stuff like that, like if I can't get around to it, I'll watch the highlights, and I did see a few clips floating around online, so I can play one that I watched and that I sent over to you that we could talk about.
Okay.
This was on IG.
That's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump, who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. And the answer is your running mate, not mine.
The reason that one stuck out to me the most is like I said, I don't have the time to kind of watch the debate, and I didn't put the time into it. Frankly, vice presidents are pretty useless in my opinion. But the one thing that it did, that I think tone captured my thought process this political season, right? And I know I've said it before, 4 years ago, gas was way cheaper. Groceries were way cheaper. And I think, whoever coached Shady Vance, I did a little bit of research, and it looked like everyone said that he demolished him. He was very prepared. However he prepared, whatever he did an amazing job, because I think that style resonated with people like me that wanted to hear, point out the obvious. Like, you've been in office for 4 years. Why are you saying, oh, now in a few months we're going to do this, But
you just said so yourself. Vice presidents are virtually useless. So you're kind of going against your own argument. So what actual power does or did she actually have in her position in office? I think that's giving way too much credit and way too much power to a vice president.
Well, listen, no matter what, you're the vice president, right? At any moment, you can become the president. So I take that, and that's a fair shot. But at the same time, you are part of the administration. You have an impact in my eyes. And look, at the end of the day, I personally think that the way this whole Biden power transition happened, it was screwed up. I think they purposely put Biden out there in front of the first debate and tried to just have Trump demolish him, because Kamala, in my opinion, was not going to pass the scrutiny of everyone. And they have not put forth a good candidate that I think would pass the scrutiny for a lot of independents and, moderate voters. So I think, even though, yes, I take that argument and I definitely see your point, my position is you were there.
Well, I mean, and by saying that also, I also agree with you that no one really wanted her to be the person on the ticket. It just had to happen because of, the way the first debate came out with Biden doing that. But I think they should have known better to put someone else out from the get, instead of making the current president look so bad that they had no other choice but to replace him with the vice president. Yeah.
And I mean, you watched the debate. Tell me what your thoughts were based on the substance of the debate.
Well, I listened to the entire debate, at the gym, and I think that both sides brought up pretty great points. But the issue that I have with politicians just in general is, as substantial as the debate was, they weren't really discussing how they were going to fix like the issues that the country has. And I'm going to just bring up like a few points that are very, very heated right now. One being women's reproductive rights. That was a very important part of the debate. I will say that JD Vance, he's an amazing orator, very, very slick talker, but he had no answer for that. Right. He had no answer for women's reproductive rights. And, and I'm not, I respect women. I feel like they should have control over deciding, when and if like they are going to be able to have the child. One thing that he kept on pushing was the narrative of like pro-family.
Yeah.
I am empathetic to people, or women going through that situation, but I'm pushing like this pro-family narrative, not really giving an answer. Another issue is like the rising cost. Farah brought up an amazing point. The issue that I have is that, JD Vance, he is bringing up all of these great points. Donald Trump, is bringing up all of these great points about the economy. But the issue is you're basically putting all of those problems on Kamala Harris. And it's like the first time in my lifetime, at least, where I'm seeing two candidates run against each other, and the other party is essentially just attacking the vice president, right? And what they should really be talking about is the administration and not Kamala herself.
But listen, so here's my point, man. Like, look, she knew what she was getting into. Like, Biden is a potato, bro. Like, he literally is like,
he's sundowning.
He reminds me of asparagus.
Yes.
He's incompetent. And look, if she really knew. You got me. I 100% know. She knew that she was going to be the one running this November. And with that being said, if she didn't, she literally is probably one of the dumbest people I've ever seen in politics, because at the end of the day, it was clear as day that he lacked competency and he would not be able to survive the November election. So like that brings another point to mind is, look, if you're not even able to understand that you should have been running the country when this old guy is like literally falling downstairs every other week and he can't even keep his words together, you literally are not qualified to be president. You know what I'm saying? You should have figured that shit out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But you can't impose your own policies as a vice president into the administration while there is a sitting president. Even if you're saying that this person is incompetent, the only way, like, there were certain situations where people were able to do that was, okay, like maybe Bill Clinton, because he was being, because he had his wife. Nancy Reagan, she was helping President Reagan because he was having a debilitating illness. Those are the only people that were actually able to influence it, and it's because they made it seem as though it was coming from him directly.
But my biggest thing is the guy is literally a potato. It's like you put me and a baby right next to one another, and I want to take that kid's candy. Guess what? If I want those gummy bears, they're mine. And that's what I'm saying. She should have taken the presidency. She should have showed the initiative to show, look, I'm not going to let him go up in debate. He's incompetent. And I think they started doing that before the debate, because if you notice the way CNN, MSNBC, all of the news outlets started flipping on Biden. And that's one of the things that kind of upset me, because like, I don't care for Biden's policies and some of the things he's done. Not saying I didn't care for him as a president. I wish the best for him, and he's managed to kind of keep the country together somewhat. My biggest thing is she knew. And that's the thing, the Democrats that really like irritate me is they did it to Bernie. Like, Bernie should have been on the ticket when he ran, right? They did it to Bernie, and they prop these fake people up. And then when they're done with them, they kick them to the curb. Like, that's in my opinion.
I do agree with you on that. Listen, I do agree with you on that on all counts. I mean, those are all excellent points. But I think my perspective on it is this debate was an eye-opener in the sense that this was really the first time during the campaign cycle where, the vice president nominees, who are basically the talking heads for the campaign, were actually discussing what the policies were. Throughout this entire campaign, whether it's Harris, whether it's Trump, no matter who you're supporting, it's essentially just been a cult of personality.
Yeah.
It's seeing what Trump is going to say wrong, what Harris is going to say wrong. What are they saying that's like controversial, in regards to the way that Kamala Harris is changing her accent? What controversial thing is Donald Trump going to say, with like a certain ethnicity? And this was like a breaking point where I was just like, okay, wow, like I can actually see what each of the campaign's policies are.
Yeah,
So,
I did hear that they had a good, like a civil discourse.
It was a very, very civil discourse.
And it was real respectful. So I'm kind of glad that I felt like I should have watched it, because part of it is like, I do want to see some civility in politics again. Like, I'm tired of the extremes. Yeah. I'm tired of this person needs to go to jail, or, this person's a crook. Like, listen, in my opinion, all of the politicians are crooks and they should all be in jail. They are wasting taxpayer dollars, like literally wasting the money that we work hard for and have to give them, or else we go to jail, So like realistically, I'm happy to see them at least be civil with one another. And I think hopefully that's a step in the right direction.
I think everyone's forgotten that that's what it's supposed to look like.
Yes.
That's what a true debate, where you can respect the other's point of views while getting your own point of view across by just being the best debater. That's how it's supposed to be, not by mudslinging, which was what was introduced once. I want to say basically once Donald Trump came onto the scene, trying to become like getting into politics. But this is what the debates were always like before. And I think everyone's just forgotten because now it's turned into a circus.
That was a great term, mudslinging. Yeah. I mean, because that's exactly what it's been. It's basically, them saying shit about each other until something sticks. And it hasn't been a great cycle. But I mean, look, the election is like 34 days away. So.
Yeah. And, everyone should get out and vote. Everyone needs to, even if you don't agree with, either party, like, look, get out, vote, do something, voice your opinion, because it does matter. Especially in places like Florida, right? Like, look, we go fucking all over the place sometimes. I like the fact that Florida's kind of in the middle and purple, per se. Yeah, we've been leaning a little bit more red. But there's Florida, we're our own little vibe.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But the next thing, speaking of, wealthy people like Donald Trump, I watched the Theo Von podcast with Mark Cuban, and
entertaining episode.
It was a very good episode. I want to play a clip from it. And it's going to talk about our boy, the Diddler, but we're going to try to avoid the Diddler as much as possible. Give me a minute.
We've been talking a lot about P. Diddy.
Dude, he's
the news cycles don't end with him, though. That's what it is. It's something new every single time.
Yeah.
And listen, with the amount of lubricant he got caught with, that's a conversation that will go on for days, buddy. Days. All right.
What is a level like? Is it scary when people get to a level of wealth that they can kind of have anything? Like, what is some of that?
See, I don't look at it that way, right?
And I'm not saying you do.
No,
either,
no, I hear
but
you.
I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, like what are the options, right?
Right.
Like if you're rich as fuck, what can you do and get away with, right? I don't hang out with people like that, right? I always looked at it that like my high school buddies are still my high school buddies, right? The guys, my rugby teammates in Indiana, my Indiana buddies, those are my friends. The guys, I lived 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment when I moved to Dallas. Those are my friends, right? So it's not like, okay, I'm getting the butlers, I'm getting the chauffeur, and look at me, right? And I came by myself. I don't give a shit about that stuff.
No, you seem, I was kind of wondering, I was like, how will he show up? Will a stork drop him off?
Yeah, right?
Like how.
The reason why, I think about that conversation with politics kind of led me into wealth. It really is, politics is all about money sometimes, right? And I think the one thing that I'll say is when you show me like how much money someone has and how they treat people and what they do with their money, it really says a lot about people, right? So like one of the things that Mark Cuban said, and who knows how true it is. He could just be saying this just to save face. Like, and look, I definitely don't have as much money as Mark Cuban does. But like the thing I liked about what he said is no matter what amount of money he makes, it doesn't change him as a person. And his high school buddies are his high school buddies. Josh and I have known each other since middle school. We, and when it comes to the way he dresses and how he goes places, I think that says so much about someone, right? And you look at certain people that have money, and the reason why this came up with Diddy was because basically they were saying look, all the lawsuits, all the criminal charges, all this shit happened because he was money. And I just think it's a great dynamic to show, hey, you can have money and be a piece of shit, or you can have money and be a good person, normal person, because money shouldn't make you, at the end of the day, if you're a good person, you'll always make money. Money doesn't make you as a person, So it was just something I thought of that was interesting.
What are your thoughts, Farah?
I feel like just on that same line, money has the ability to corrupt people. So you have to kind of find the people that are either not corruptible or they have, like Mark Cuban is saying, he keeps a certain posse around him that keeps him humble. The people that were around there before he was rich, before he had those, he had humble beginnings.
Yeah.
So if you keep that kind of stuff around, it'll keep you less likely to be able to be corrupted, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, I think both of you guys bring up excellent points. Especially with what Mike said, I feel like it's the people that you surround yourself with. When you read about billionaires like Warren Buffett, even look at Jeff Bezos, someone that is in the public eye and is semi-controversial with some statements, Elon Musk, they are never putting themselves in these types of situations. And I think whether it's pertaining to maybe hip hop culture, Diddy being, at the forefront in entertainment for a few decades, he's put himself in a position where these people are able to come forward and come at him with multitudes of lawsuits. I mean, just the fact that another 100 were filed a few days ago. Yep. I don't know how many of those are actually true, but I mean, the fact that you have 100 people coming forward means that there was something going on.
Some of that's got to stick.
Some of that is going to stick.
If you have been diddled by the diddler in Florida, you may be entitled to compensation. Call Kraken Law Group. Interesting thing about what you just mentioned, some of the people you just mentioned is Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. I don't know their life stories. I don't know, but there are a few things that I remember seeing from, especially Bezos and Musk, where they started very humbly. They started these multi-billion-dollar businesses very humbly. There's a picture of Jeff Bezos, with an Amazon poster spray painted with him in a shit area. I believe the same thing I remember seeing a thing about Elon Musk, and he was interviewed by Barbara Walters or someone, and he was talking about him buying his first, I think it was a McLaren or something like that. It was really interesting. And you see, look, these are the wealthiest people in the world. Yeah, they probably have people telling them, listen, don't do this, don't do that. Because when you have that much wealth and you run those big of companies, you have lawyers up your ass telling you what to do and what not to do. And you're also pretty smart because you're able to create a company that gets you to that level of wealth. But then you hear of other companies. I don't know. This made me think of, remember the company Von Dutch? There was I don't know the whole story about it, but I remember there was a story about how Von Dutch, got super popular, became a very prominent clothing brand. And then the owner started doing a whole bunch of shit where he did a bunch of illegal stuff. And I don't remember all the facts, but it just goes to show look, you can get all the money in the world and it will make you a shittier person. Because it enhances the, shitty person you are, essentially. It just makes you more shitty. And one of the things that I really, really have tried to do no matter what is I've never want to let money run my life. I don't care about money as long as I'm able to pay my bills and, continue doing what I love doing, which is obviously being a lawyer and working in this field. And now creating content like this, I mean, I'm blessed, and no amount of money will ever change that.
the question I have for both of you guys is for people that are kind of in this position where they do accumulate wealth, beyond human comprehension sometimes. What's your perspective on what they can do from a legal standpoint to protect themselves from people taking advantage of them? And, with cases that you've handled, do you recommend that they just try not to surround themselves with like yes men? Because I feel like that was the issue with Diddy. And that's the issue with a lot of like these people that find themselves in these scenarios that have money, is they're surrounded with yes people that aren't really questioning anything and just making it happen.
Well, so one of the things, we have a lot of wealthy clients and we can't talk case specifics, obviously. But what we tend to do is once you have money, you should always get a lawyer and consult your lawyer with everything you do.
Prenup.
Yeah. Number one, when it comes to like marriage, when it comes to how you run your business, the contracts that you sign with people, listen, yes, you can go to ChatGPT and create a contract, but let me tell you what, I have seen cases where millions of dollars have gone down the drain and people have lost cases because they didn't want to pay a lawyer $1,000. At the end of the day, you got to get a lawyer and you got to financially plan, because as the wise man Biggie Smalls once said, "Mo money, mo problems."
I'm going to put him saying that in the podcast.
Very wise, very big and small guy. But
R.I.P. Gone too soon.
Gone too soon. And Diddy probably did it. It's like Diddy. He's the one, man. I want to fight him. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to fight him.
It's kind of funny because we're trying to move on to other topics, but he's just inundated everyone's news feeds because there's always something new.
Watch, but we can mix him into any topic. Example: what if the hurricane that just recently passed came through and wrecked his mansion, and all of a sudden you just see thousands of bottles of lube in Tampa Bay? Wouldn't that be like, number one, you have an environmental problem?
Well, number two, they would immediately know where all of those bottles came from.
Or it would be an easy way for him to get rid of the evidence because it was a natural disaster. He didn't do anything to tamper with it.
Yeah. Diddy is the cause of environment. Now we have successfully made Diddy a potential cause of an environmental disaster.
That is the perfect segue into the final topic, which is Hurricane Helen. We're a Florida-based podcast, again, sponsored by Kraken Law Group, but we're based in Central Florida, and we were very, very fortunate enough here in Central Florida to not have been hit too hard by the hurricane. But our hearts go out to the people out west in Tallahassee, that have been really devastated. Mike, you've handled quite a few property cases. So what's your experience with people dealing with insurance companies? And I want to preface this by some knowledge that I have on the rising insurance costs in Florida, and just like areas that are more subject to natural disasters. You have insurance companies dropping out left and right, not giving homeowners the coverage that they need, during, hurricanes. What's something that homeowners can do to protect themselves, and how obligated are the insurance companies to actually pay out these homeowners the full amount?
So there's one thing I like doing, it's ragging on insurance companies. I hate them. They help me pay a lot of my bills, but I have to give them their money back because I have to pay for insurance. It's like this never ending cycle between me and them. But at the end of the day, look, obviously the hurricanes are very severe. And, we 2 years ago, many people don't know this, but our entire office was flooded 2 years ago. Farah was working with us.
Yeah.
You remember how much we had to deal with?
So much.
Yeah, literally.
There was water like pooled at the bottom. I think it was like what? Like maybe a foot or less, like around that much of water, just like wading throughout the entire office. Yeah,
they gutted our whole office, and thank God we don't own this building. The landlord does, and we basically told him, you better fix this. But at the end of the day, look, we're back in our office. Everything's great, but what that did is it made me like really understand the concept of storm preparation. So like I went and got sandbags and to border off the doors here. And that's one of the things that, like, you know, you as a homeowner need to think about, because what insurance companies will do when storms like this come is, like you said, they try to, you know, not pay. So one of the things that I like to tell people that I represent when it comes to homeowners claims or any of the insurance claims that we deal with is do as much as you possibly can to avoid whatever you possibly can. Things like sandbags, things like making sure you have things like sandbags, making sure everything, you know, looks good outside, cover up whatever, getting your loose debris out. Things like that can help prevent damage to your house and other houses, right? But because insurance companies, they do not want to pay. Even when they have to pay, they drag it out as long as possible, and it's horrible.
And they'll nickel and dime you. They'll be like, oh, well, I don't know if this counts as like something that was damaged from the hurricane or it's rises to that level. Because I think like even when they sell the insurance, it's like up to a certain miles per hour of winds that have to be for like hurricane shutters and stuff in order for it to be counted as it was due to the natural disaster.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because they distinguish based off of wind speed. There's different provisions in your insurance policy that you should always talk to a lawyer, whether it be a firm like mine or any lawyer that deals with insurance first party claims. You should always talk to a lawyer about your insurance policy when you get it, not after the storm. Review when you get your insurance to make sure you're covered for certain things, because insurance companies will say, yeah, we cover this, but then there's a little clause somewhere that you're not covered. But the scariest thing for like the shit that I hate about insurance companies is the costs that they're putting on the homeowners, because like you said, a bunch of people are leaving. You know, we purchased a townhome a few years ago. It was new construction, so our insurance costs are not that bad. But, you know, like I feel bad for people that don't own a home yet in Florida or that do currently own a regular standalone home, because it's so expensive for homeowners insurance. You know, do you rent or do you own a home?
Rent.
Have you started looking into like buying houses yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, I mean, part of the interest rate's probably impacting what your decision is, but
and the market right now is not great.
Yeah, when you combine the market, the interest rates, and then the insurance costs, you're really only paying maybe a third of, if that, of money to the principal amount that you're taking a loan on. And I mean, I see homeowners insurance quotes of like $12,000-$13,000 sometimes.
You hit the nail on the head. That's kind of what scared me away from wanting to purchase something right now, is all of the other like associated costs that come with the house, you know, because, you know, of course you already know that you have property taxes. And now with like the rising insurance costs, interest rates being, you know, high, even though the Fed just dropped it by a half a percentage point, interest rates are still, you know, higher than they were a few years ago. And, you know, the market is still at an inflated rate. So it's almost better, you know, to be in a position to rent right now to avoid a lot of like those other back end costs.
So this is a interesting concept you just made me think of. How do you feel about rent control? Because like, think about this. Ultimately, the homeowner's insurance costs are going to trickle down to renters, because think about it. If I own a property and I'm renting it and I have to pay more to own that property, well, shit, I'm not going to pay for, you know, my tenant to kind of just walk away scot-free. I need to make a profit. How does that impact your view on rent control?
I 100% believe that there should be some semblance of rent control in every state. Coming from living in both New York City and Los Angeles and seeing the housing crisis that has impacted, you know, people just like across, you know, both of those cities and both of those states based off of how expensive it is to live. There has to be a cap on how much landlords are able to not only charge, but how much they're raising the rent, you know, on these people. And I do understand that, look, like landlords, they're the ones taking the risk. They're the ones buying the property. They should in turn deserve to make money on that property as well. but living costs just across the country, like they've skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Most people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck, and they can't afford to live on their own. That's why, like, you have a lot of people that still have roommates.
I feel like when we're renting, we're also still paying renter's insurance though. So that's why I don't understand like the gap where they're like, okay, if you're increasing the price of the rent, but I'm still also paying renter's insurance, why can't it be somewhere like combined somewhere that, okay, like maybe because of liabilities might have to slightly increase the renter's insurance? Because otherwise it doesn't make sense. I agree, with Josh. I think there should be some type of rent control because right now I'm renting an apartment, just switching to renting a home, and it's just the cost of the renter's insurance isn't that much more.
I'm like torn. I'm on both ends of the fence because on one aspect, I think about it from a constitutional protection, right? Like, look, I don't want the government telling me what I can and cannot do with my property as much as possible, right? And I'll be damned if I, say, oh, you can tell me I can't make as much money off of something I own. That's where I kind of draw a line. So it's like, but I do agree with you. I do think there needs to be some checks and balances. Now, my theory is, or my biggest gripe is with who takes that hit, right? Do I think landowners should take that hit? No. Do I think the tenants should take that hit? No. I think the government should take the hit. And the insurance companies, if they want to rack up the rates as high as they do, I think they should, the government should make it harder for insurance companies to rack up the rates, number one. And then if they're willing to take that, impose some sort of rent control, I think they need to do what's in their control and lower the property taxes for people that rent properties. Not saying like, look, if you live in a property, obviously I think you should be paying your property taxes. But if you are using a property for rental, to rent out, you're essentially, I think they should work on the taxes for rental properties a little bit.
I think that major issue, and that's a topic that we can delve into deeply at another time, but it's just private equity, man.
Yeah.
Most of these houses that have been scooped up, over like the last few years post-pandemic have been through larger rental companies like Progress or AMH. And, these are institutions where they're not paying attention to the everyday person. They're just paying attention to the bottom line for stockholders. And that is what is driving up rental costs like across the country to like these exorbitant amounts.
Yeah, and to bring that up, there was a big lawsuit throughout the country against, I think, Open Door. And I didn't get a chance to really dive into it too much, but from what I remember overhearing, basically what those companies did is they went into when the market was booming, they went in and purchased a bunch of properties at a higher rate, driving the overall value of those neighborhoods up, which then in turn affected the property taxes for people. I personally think companies like that should be liable for this. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, when there's neighborhoods here that people have been living in for 40, 50 years, and they've been paying $1,000, $2,000 a year in property taxes. And then because some dickhead that has a shit ton of money puts together a firm that a company to go and buy every single property at a premium and then essentially price out people that literally have been living there for 40 to 50 years, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, because you're not just talking about a small landlord who is purchasing a few properties. You're talking about like these major multi-billion-dollar institutions that are purchasing thousands of properties. The everyday person doesn't stand a chance in buying a home, and they are at the landlord's beck and call for whatever that person wants to raise the rent to.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just to kind of segue back to what we were talking about before, about wealth, man, the more money that companies have, the more you see companies screw people, regular hardworking people, and that sucks, man. It really does suck. But hopefully the government will get involved, whether it's on the state or local, federal, whatever needs to get done. But we do need to protect, the citizens. We do need to protect people from these crazy things. I would love if, the legislators would implement a law that allow plaintiffs' lawyers like myself to go and pursue cases against these companies. I can think of a few laws that I could probably manipulate it. But I just want literally a law written on the books that say, if you are a company and you do this and we can prove it, you are going to be held liable for punitive damages. That would be that I would literally transition my whole business platform. If I can go after them and get attorney's fees and costs, be a dream of mine. Cause I hate people that just take advantage of people.
And that's why you're always going after insurance companies. So
yeah, I hate them a lot.
Well, that was a great episode, guys. Anything else we want to cover? All good?
No, I think we're good.
Well, thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions on what you'd like us to talk about in the future, leave them in the comments below. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you again. And until next time.
Josh, Mike, Farah.
Bye.
Deuces.